No risk it, no biscuit.
Coming from the Arizona desert, presented by SBNation.com. For Arizona Cardinals fans, by Arizona Cardinals fans, with outsider and insider's perspective, this is Revenge of the Birds. Welcome into Revenge of the Birds Radio. This is your host, Jess Root, and today we are talking with Ted Glover of the Daily Norseman, of DailyNorseman.com, our Minnesota Vikings SB Nation team site, the sister site of Revenge of the Birds, the Arizona Cardinals site. And we brought Ted on today to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Vikings, their offseason. And welcome. Thanks for coming on, Ted. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me on. Glad to be here.
And I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk a little Minnesota Vikings. So first, tell us, there's been a lot of change this offseason after kind of a disappointing season. Arizona Cardinals fans were familiar with that, as just 2 years ago we went through a 5-11 season, which brought an off-season change of Bruce Arians, a new coaching staff, which led to some success. So what transpired in 2013, and why did they make the coaching change other than the obvious reason? Tell us about Mike Zimmer and kind of his philosophy as they changed up the team.
What transpired? Well, it was a craptastical season, for one. The Vikings' offense became very boring and predictable. The old staff, Leslie Frazier, nice guy. Everybody says that he is a genuinely nice guy. But his coordinators, Bill Musgrave and Alan Williams, offensive and defensive coordinators respectively, were not suited to run an NFL offense or defense. The Vikings' offense was very limited and boring and predictable. The defense could not stop a good college team, and it just got to the point where a change had to be made. In comes Mike Zimmer, longtime NFL assistant, been rumored or had interviewed for more than one NFL head coaching job. He finally got his chance with the Vikings, and it seems so far he's making the most of it. Nobody has really questioned the hiring of the guys he's hired on his staff. Norv Turner comes in with a generation of experience and credibility as a coordinator. Maybe not so much as a head coach, but he's not going to be a head coach here. He's going to be a coordinator, and he's got a proven track record in that, and a proven offensive mind. I like what he's done so far. Zimmer's really struck the right tone in connecting with the people of Minnesota and connecting with the past heritage of the Vikings. He's bringing in former players and former coaches to talk to the teams after practice. He's had Jerry Burns, former coach Alan Page. He met with Bud Grant, I think, the day he was hired. So it's been a very refreshing change, and I think we're going to see things starting to move in the right direction. If anything from, if the indications that we've gotten from training camp and the off season so far have been any indication.
So what type of changes are they looking philosophically, offensively? Say there was a very, very short passing West Coast type thing, obviously leaning a lot on Adrian Peterson. What's going to change with Turner this year leading the way offensively?
I think it's going to be a more downfield vertical passing game. That's kind of Norv Turner's calling card, if you will. Adrian Peterson is still going to be the focal point of the offense. I mean, you have the best running back in football. However, they're going to use him less as a battering ram and more of a running back who also catches passes. He's caught passes before, but it's him running the ball and making things happen, which has kind of been the Vikings offense for the last couple of years, with the exception of maybe 2009 with Brett Favre. It's here you go, Adrian. Hey, it'd be great if you could get us 25 yards right now. That'd be awesome. And I don't think that's going to be the case with Norv Turner. He's got the Vikings have a very good set of offensive weapons. Kyle Rudolph is a good tight end. I think they've got really good wideouts in Greg Jennings and Cordero Patterson. and you have a legitimate NFL quarterback in Matt Castle. And now people may chuckle, legitimate NFL quarterback, but consider where the Vikings have been. Castle is an upgrade. He's a veteran. He can bring the passing game to a level of respectability that the Vikings haven't had in the last couple of years, and he'll be able to get the ball downfield to guys like Greg Jennings and Rudolph. And so I think it's going to be a more balanced downfield attack, which would be a very welcome change of pace.
So that's an interesting comment you say about Matt Castle. He's kind of been the laughingstock of quarterbacks that have actually had real success in the league. He led a New England team to 11 wins. He led the Chiefs to 10 wins and the playoffs in a season there. His numbers aren't awful, but no one seems to take him seriously. Why is that?
I think it has to do with when Matt Castle has been good, he hasn't been elite. He's been good. He's had, I think, one, maybe two All-Pro years. I'd have to look it up, but he's had a couple of pretty good years. But when Matt Castle's been bad, he's been highlight reel football follies bad. and I think people remember that more than they do the year he went, I think it was 11-5, when Tom Brady tore his ACL the first game of the season. I think was it against the Cardinals, or it might have been Kansas City? It was a team with the red jersey. I remember that.
It was KC. It was KC.
It was Kansas City.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, but the Patriots didn't go to the playoffs. I think they were like the first 11-5 team in NFL history to not make the playoffs that year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Matt Castle had a very good year. So when Matt Castle has the weapons around him, he can run an NFL offense. Now, Matt Castle, I don't think he's going to go out and win a game for you like Brett Favre could, or Joe Montana with the fourth quarter comeback drives. I don't know that he's elite like that. But when the Vikings won their games last year, it was with Matt Castle running a good, slightly above average, not elite. I would even maybe struggle to say great, but it was a balanced, good offense. And he won 3 games late in the year last year as the Vikings quarterback. So, yeah, Castle gets bagged on, but when given the right environment and a guy like Norv Turner, and then you turn around and you look at Norv Turner's track record with what are popularly called journeyman quarterbacks like Brian Hoyer last year in Cleveland, and so he has the capability to put up good numbers in an offense that I think plays to his strengths and will allow him to showcase his talent.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about Teddy Bridgewater and the draft pick there, but before we get to the draft, let's talk a little bit in terms of the offseason losses and gains. What, in terms of player change outside of the draft, of free agent losses, free agent gains, what has been? I mean, Jared Allen is the big loss, obviously. What was the good and the bad, the impact losses, the possible impact gains that the Vikings got this offseason?
In free agency, when we're talking losses for the Vikings, the two names that jump out to everybody are Kevin Williams and Jared Allen, naturally. That said, both Allen and Williams are north of 30. Their production, especially Kevin Williams' production, has dropped. Now, I think Kevin Williams can still be a pretty good situational, rotational guy. Jared Allen, and I love Jared Allen. I'm going to love Jared Allen till the day I die, probably. But he kind of became a one-trick pony his last couple of years in Minnesota. He was focused on nothing but rushing the passer and getting a sack. And that was kind of the defense the Vikings were in, which is a kind of a hybrid Tampa 2, which is cool if you're getting to the quarterback on a regular basis. The Vikings' defensive line was not. And Allen could very easily be, his upfield rush could very easily take him out of a lot of plays, exposing the entire right side of the Vikings defense. So those names jump out, but when you talk about guys they got back, let's talk about the free agents they kept, Everson Griffin and Matt Castle. Griffin is the guy that's going to replace Allen. He's 26 or 27. They gave him a big contract, but the guy can play. He's just a freakish athlete, and the Vikings are pretty confident, especially with this new defense that Mike Zimmer's installing. not going to be reliant on one or two guys to bring pressure to bear on the quarterback. It's going to be all along the line and from the linebackers at different points, on both sides. So I don't think they're going to miss Jared Allen in that sense. I don't think they're going to have a 12 or 13 sack guy like Allen could be, but I think as a team they're probably going to have more sacks than they had last year. Talking about additions, let's go with Captain Munnerlyn and Linval Joseph were big signees this offseason. They needed a guy in the middle of their defensive line that can help stop the run because the Vikings have been a sieve defensively in run defense. And Linval Joseph is a big 320-pound guy that can clog up the middle like Pat Williams did, in the mid to late 2000s for the Vikings. Captain Munnerlyn is a guy that's sorely needed as a cornerback. The Vikings secondary was historically bad from a franchise perspective last year, especially in the slot position. And Munnerlyn's one of the best slot corners in the NFL. So those two guys would probably be the biggest additions. They also got, Jasper Brinkley, a guy.
Hey, we know him. We know Brinkley. Yeah. He was he did pretty good for 3 games.
Yeah.
Before we sent him back to special teams. It was interesting because he played really well in training camp. The coaches loved him, but when you have Darryl Washington and Carlos Dansby, he's not the same guy. And obviously they welcomed him back. What kind of an impact will he have there as the 4-3 middle linebacker?
He's going to be primarily in the 4-3. He's their base Mike linebacker in the base 4-3. He'll be out there on running plays. He's actually a pretty decent run defender. His weakness, I'm sure, as you guys know, I'm probably preaching to the choir here.
Stiff hips.
Brinkley's pass defense leaves something to be desired, so he will not be in the base nickel. But the first, second down or short yardage situations, he can be an asset to a defense. So that's Brinkley's role, and that's the role he played when he was here before he went to. He took his pre-retirement trip to Arizona, which I think is federal law now. As you age, you have to go either to Florida or Arizona. But so I think he'll be okay for a year or two in the middle. The Vikings got a lot of young, talented linebackers. They just don't have a lot of experience, and Brinkley brings a veteran presence along with Chad Greenway that will really help develop the younger guys behind him.
So, got the additions, the subtractions. Look at the draft. Obviously. And probably overlooked in the entire draft is their first pick, Anthony Barr, a guy that believe it or not, a lot of people thought might drop just because of, for some reason, and he was an intriguing pick for the Cardinals back in pick 20. I think they would have swooped and picked him up because of the production he had. He kind of is tailor-made for the 3-4 edge, and obviously he's not playing that in Minnesota. What's going to be his role in... And what I'm looking here at the depth chart, and it says they have him as a starter right now. How's he look so far as a young player, as a rookie coming out of minicamp and training camp?
Well, he missed most of the minicamps. You guys out west in your Pac-12 land there have that quarter system for all your colleges and universities.
Oh, goodness. I didn't realize that UCLA was part of that. I knew Stanford was.
Yeah, Stanford and UCLA. Well, I don't know about the entire Pac-12, but I know Stanford and UCLA both were. And that really affected Barr because he could only go to Barr and David Yankee, the fifth rounder they got from Stanford, could only go to 4 or 5 days of mini camps and OTAs. The rest of the time they had to be back at school and all that. So they missed most of the off season, the mini camp stuff. So when Barr came in, he was behind, and you could tell the first 3, 4, 5 days of training camp, it was pretty obvious because he was getting a lot of one-on-one instruction, both from Zimmer and from the positional coaches and everything else. But when you have the kind of talent and natural ability a guy like Anthony Barr has, you're not going to be on the bench for long. And he's moved to the outside on the Sam. He's the number one guy on the Sam side right now. And he looks pretty good. He's going to be a guy that's going to be bringing a lot of pressure from the edge. They've even had him a couple times, and I don't know if they're still experimenting with this or not. But they had him as a down lineman a couple times in a couple looks. But he's primarily going to be an edge guy coming off the right side of the Vikings defense, and he looks good. I mean, he got a half a sack in the first preseason game, and he still needs to learn the pro game, and he's still catching up to the Vikings playbook, but he's made up a lot of ground, and his speed and natural ability is pretty impressive when you see it firsthand.
Teddy Bridgewater, I think, is the kind of the name of your draft. You moved up to pick him at the end of the first round, and obviously the talk of the young quarterbacks. Is Teddy going to compete? Is he really competing for a starting job? Might he surpass Castle, or is that more hopeful fans who will be waiting like hungry sharks at the moment Castle isn't playing well to jump on the Teddy bandwagon?
I think at this point it's probably the latter. It's a legitimate competition. The Vikings coaches have said it's still going on. Bridgewater's going to take snaps with the first team in Saturday's game against the Cardinals. That said, Matt Castle has played well. I mean, we've broken apart Teddy Bridgewater's game and broken it down kind of ad nauseum, even before the draft, with the skinny knees talk and the gloves and the bad pro day and all that stuff. But he hasn't played bad, and he has a pocket presence and an innate quarterback ability that is beyond his years, I would argue. He still is catching up to the speed of the NFL. I think we saw that last Friday against the Raiders. His decision making was slower than it has been in training camp, and it was when you watch him on film at Louisville. But I think once he catches up to the speed of the game, he's going to be a great quarterback. But that said, Matt Castle hasn't done anything to warrant losing the job. He's looked great in preseason. He looked great against the Raiders. And you can make the argument right now it would probably be better for the Vikings to go with Castle until Castle, plays to a point where he can't get it done anymore.
And interesting. So kind of, I'm not the draft Nick, but one of the things I heard is that Teddy might be better suited for more of the shorter passing. Does he fit with talent-wise with what Norv Turner likes to do offensively? Will he be able to push the ball down the field the way Norv would prefer to do so? I know that was kind of a thing that the Cardinals ran into because Bruce Arians loves the deep ball, and so he has a prototypical big, tall, thick quarterback with a big arm.
Yeah, Bridgewater Bridgewater can make every throw. His deep game accuracy, deep throwing accuracy was questioned. It's looked okay so far. The only thing is that Bridgewater's a rookie. I don't think he'll have a problem adapting to the pro game at all, or what Norv Turner wants to do. The coaches have said he's doing everything he's supposed to and then some. They're giving him a lot more to have to deal with in practices in terms of defensive situations than they said they've given any other rookie they've ever had to work or tutor. He just needs to get game experience, and I think that's going to come. But yeah, he can handle. I think he's perfectly capable of being the quarterback that fits Norv Turner's offense without any problems, and he's got the weapons to do it too. So we'll see how that goes.
Running down the rest of the draft class, a name that was rather intriguing for Cardinals fans is the guy Jerick McKinnon, who the Cardinals, they worked him out a couple of times. Little guy in terms of his stature, thicker and fast. What does he bring to the table? Has he done anything yet in camp? Is he going to be a change of pace guy? Is he going to take any playing time away from Adrian Peterson? How are they going to use McKinnon this year?
It looks like he's going to be their third down back. Right now it's between him and a guy by the name of Matt Asiata, who's been the primary backup to Peterson he was the third down back last year, then before Toby Gerhart left. It looks like Asiata is going to be the primary backup, but McKinnon is a really intriguing guy. Still kind of raw, hasn't played the running back position much, but he has speed to burn for days. I mean, I tweeted this out when I was up in Mankato, and I never saw Randy Moss in a training camp setting. But I've seen Adrian Peterson, and I have seen Percy Harvin. And I think McKinnon, as straight-line runner, is faster than both of those guys. I mean, when he gets the ball and he gets it into his high gear, you're not going to catch him. He's going to be a change of pace like think a Darren Sproles kind of guy, like Turner had in San Diego. The short, shifty little guy coming out of the backfield and hiding behind the offensive lineman at the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden you look and he's 25 yards downfield. Is he going to take serious playing time away from Adrian Peterson? No, I doubt it, but they're going to be smarter with how they use Peterson than the Vikings have in the past. And I think simply for the fact they've got more offensive weapons and a quarterback that can deploy the whole offense. So I think Peterson's carries are going to go down, but not necessarily because of McKinnon, simply for the fact the Vikings are going to have a more balanced offense to begin with.
Okay. So he's kind of like, Cardinals fans would recognize kind of like the Andre Ellington. Does he get to line up wide at all? I know Ellington, they line him in the backfield, they line him up wide. Will McKinnon be used in multiple fashion, or will he be basically kind of the guy that rolls out of the backfield rather than being lined up at the slot or outside wide?
Yeah, I haven't seen him working out of the slot or out wide at all. It's been kind of lining up in the backfield, then going in motion kind of thing, and taking the quick swing pass out of the backfield and just getting him in space to maybe make a guy miss, and now you're looking at a big play. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from what I've seen so far. But, of course, anything can change between now and the beginning of the season.
Okay, let's look at coming up this week. Obviously, the first preseason game did not go quite so well for the Vikings. The Raiders' pass rush was, which Cardinals fans are kind of looking ahead to this game as, they didn't get much of a pass rush going up against Houston, but they've thoroughly dominated the line of scrimmage. What happened in that game? Is the offensive line, is it the new offense, the pushing the ball down the field, the longer to develop plays? What happened in that game where the pass rush just was too much for that Minnesota line?
Well, what happened was they had the third offensive line in, and it was all of those sacks came. Well, Bridgewater was sacked, I think, once. Castle was sacked once, and then it was kind of a jailbreak when the down roster guys were in. It wasn't too bad when the first and second guys were in. They set up a pretty clean pocket for both Castle and Bridgewater. The Vikings offensive line, it's their top unit. Their number one guys are a pretty good unit. I mean, you've got Matt Coyle, Charlie Johnson, John Sullivan, Brandon Fusco, and Phil Lodeholt. And that's a pretty good line. The depth could be an issue. And we kind of saw that if you're a Vikings fan on Friday night when the down roster guys got in the game, it sort of got ugly pretty fast. I'm kind of expecting more of an improvement for the first unit. They gave up that one sack to Castle or when Castle was in, and then Bridgewater fumbled one on his first drive, but if they can clean that up, it's going to be a pretty formidable unit. We'll see how that goes, though. All
right. So, tell our Cardinals fans, obviously, the preseason games were much different. What could a Cardinals fan expect to see from Minnesota? Who are some players that are standing out that maybe we don't really know? Because, truthfully, there is, outside of the names, Adrian Peterson, Teddy Bridgewater, Matt Castle, Cordarrelle Patterson, Greg J. There's some names there. But who are some of those other players that are standing out that we might see making plays or making an impact on the game?
A couple names I'll give you. One on offense, one on defense. On offense, wide receiver Adam Thielen. He's a guy that was he was on the practice squad for a while last year, and has really made a lot of noise. I would be surprised at this point if he didn't make the roster. He's number 19. Number 19. And he's a guy that whatever they've asked him to do, he has been able to come through and do it. I mean, whether it's return punts, he averaged, I think, 15 yards per return last week. He caught a couple passes, made a really nice tackle on special teams. So Thielen is one of those guys just kind of be on the lookout for, and he's probably going to get a lot of playing time as well. On defense, cornerback Jabari Price is a guy I think Cardinal fans should take a look at. He was a 7th-round draft pick, and when you look at him, you're thinking, wow, 7th-round draft pick, probably nothing more than a camp body. And the Vikings, when on their offseason, when they went and got into the free agency period, they not only signed Captain Munnerlyn, but they signed Derek Cox, who had a pretty good career down in Jacksonville, kind of went off the rails in San Diego a bit last year, but most people were thinking he'd be high in the contention for the nickel slot, but it looks like Jabari Price is right there. He's played really well. Defensive coaches really like him, and they really like his aggressive style. So if I'm going to give you two names, those would be it, Jabari Price and Adam Thielen.
All right. So is there anything that, if there is something looking ahead to this game, what are you hoping to see from obviously the back of the roster? That's always kind of a crapshoot. They're fighting for positions. But in terms of football fans, we tend to look at how does the first team do. What will you consider success coming out, and how long are the starters going to play? Has that been said yet?
No, they really haven't said, and I think they're going to probably play a little bit longer than normal because both Mike Zimmer and Norv Turner have said they want to get Teddy Bridgewater some work with the first team. So the first team will probably be out, at least the first team offensive line will be out longer than we would normally see for a second preseason game. And so what I'd like to see, what would I consider a success, I'd like to see Bridgewater do a little bit better than he did last week. I think the core quarterback attributes he did fine in. I'd like to see him speed up his decision-making process and maybe push the ball downfield a little bit more than he did last game. I'd like to see kind of some clarity develop at linebacker. That's been really an unsettled position in the entire training camp. And I think they have their base guys set, it seems like, now with Anthony Barr moving up. But it would be nice to see them kind of develop and move forward as a unit. And then the last thing I'd look for is who are the guys that are going to be the cornerbacks behind Munnerlyn, Xavier Rhodes, and probably Harrison Smith in the secondary. They're starting safety. They've had unsettled. The other safety spot has been unsettled. The nickel and dime back guys have been really unsettled. So I'd like to see a little bit more clarity on that coming out of this game as well, because it just really, of everything so far, the secondary has kind of given me the biggest question mark. So that still has to be answered.
Well, great, Ted. Thanks for dropping a lot of Vikings knowledge for those of us who, in the offseason, we're focusing definitely a whole lot more on the Arizona Cardinals. Well, we knew about Teddy Bridgewater, but thanks for the visit. How can fans follow you on Twitter, Ted?
If you really want to follow my rantings and ravings on Twitter, you want to go to @PurpleBuckeye. I'm a big Ohio State fan too, which probably means I'm hated by all of your fans now.
That's actually some fans, yes, but out here in Arizona, we got a whole bunch of Buckeye pride out here.
Oh, that's all the old white people like me are retired and living out there. Yeah, that's right. @PurpleBuckeye on Twitter. You can follow Daily Norseman is @Daily Norseman on Twitter. If you visit our site, dailynorseman.com, we've got a bunch of great writers, put out a lot of great content. All of our Twitter handles, you can find them on our masthead at Daily Norseman, and hope to pick up a few new followers, and hope you don't mind some bad language, especially on Game Day Sunday. It can be PG-13 to R sometimes.
Well, question for our community: if they join Daily Norseman, are they going to have the wait period, or can they jump right in and start commenting right away, or should they start early so they can participate later in the week?
Yeah, start now. We have this thing. We get so many trolls from Green Bay and Chicago during those weeks that we kind of had to institute. I think it's a 48-hour waiting period, just so we don't. Because you couldn't pay me enough money to just throw out some of the comments we got the last couple of years. So and it really got bad, in 2010 with Favre and all that kind of stuff too.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
yes.
And so it just kind of made sense to put in this waiting period. To just kind of alleviate a lot of the would-be trolls that would come in and just drop some idiotic comments and then leave again. So yeah, we've got a little bit of a waiting period, but it's worth the wait. It's a great community.
All right. Well, again, Ted, thanks so much for the visit on Revenge of the Birds Radio. Follow him at Purple Buckeye. Visit dailynorseman.com. Join the community there. You can have a chat with a lot of great Vikings fans, get a lot of great Vikings content, much like Revenge of the Birds for the Arizona Cardinals. And we'll talk to you, Teddy. We'll talk to you at another date, hopefully sometime during the season. I don't think we play each other. No, we don't. But appreciate the time, and good luck to your team. Thanks for coming on.
Jess.
You have a good
same
one.
to you guys. Hope you guys have a good season, injury-free.
You've been listening to Revenge of the Birds. Keep the conversation going by visiting revengeofthebirds.com. Follow us on Twitter at Revenge of Birds. You can also find us on iTunes at facebook.com/revengeofthebirds.